My name is Alaizabel Cray. You're watching the Keith Andrew Network. Be sure to like and subscribe.
The whole point of my talk show is to show people that even with having a learning disability, I can sell them out to something. And at the same time, I'm able to turn myself into an example for people out there dealing with any types of learning disabilities and disabilities. Never give up and prove people wrong. Prove to them that labels do not dictate who you are, who you're going to be. So prove to them, sell them out to something. Ladies and gentlemen, I am your host, Keith Andrew, and welcome to episode 23 of season 12. As you heard from the recommendation from the start, let's get started. Today it's Tuesday, and you know what that means? If you have Peacock, if you watch the USA Network, it is WWE NXT. If you're a fan of NXT, it's available on YouTube, Peacock, and the USA Network. So make sure to get those today. Also, the first question I want to ask you is icebreakers. Tell our audience a little bit about yourself and the type of work that you do.
Yeah, so my name is Alaizabel Cray. I am, as of earlier this year, I became a professional entertainer. I do a little bit of everything. I act, I model, I'm a cosplayer. I'm actually currently working on a web series that I hope to publish later this year. I do a lot of different things. I give tour guides of or I'm a tour guide who gives tours of Capitol Hill. We do the haunted pub crawls. And I also just became an actress with a company called American Immersive Theater, and we do murder mystery parties and like we have Disney princesses and stuff for hire. So I do a lot of stuff. I'm a busy woman.
Well, the first question I want to ask you, it's the subject we're going to talk about is your career. It's really cool as we're talking. We have different special effects. For this one, the guy's walking up the stairs. There should be a woman one, but not saying it's sexist, but it's a guy walking up the stairs. It would be nice to have a woman walking up the stairs, but whatever. I did not create the special effects, so whatever. It is what I hate the expression. It is what it is. You mentioned you are created a web series. What can you tell us about that?
Oh, yes, I cannot wait to talk about this web series. So I started writing this web series back in August. It's called Betty's Rock and Roll Reality. And I plan to release it on a platform called Inkit, which has a bunch of other web novels. I plan to release a couple chapters every week. Um, but it started out as a fan fiction that I wrote when I was in middle school about the show Rockstar in Excess. It was like my favorite reality show, and it only lasted for like 2 seasons. But the premise of my web series is you have a young woman named Betty Reinhardt, and Betty's autistic and has ADHD. That in much like myself, that impacts how she goes about, being in the world. But she's also something of a musical and performing prodigy. So she gets cast on this new reality show called International Rockathon, where you have 16 people from all over the world competing to be the new lead singer of an 80s rock band called Funky, and they're just coming out of retirement for their first world tour in over a decade. And the whole story follows Betty's journey on this reality show as she gets to know herself and gets to know the people around her and all of the lessons that she learns about loving herself, loving her fellow human being, loving her craft. And, because I'm a sucker for a good romance, she ends up falling in love with one of the other contestants. So
Yeah,
I it's a story that's been very much a labor of love from the moment I started working on it many years ago as a fan fiction, and I hope people can, when they read this story, they'll see that this was a labor of love for me as well.
absolutely. And I do have a couple ideas so I can mention off the air, but I'm going to throw it out right here. I would love to invite you to be part of my network.
Sure.
We could definitely talk more about that off the air, but I'm always looking for great content and great people to work with as well. You help me, I help you, so it's a win-win. So the first question I want to, oh, actually, second question I want to ask you is what attracted you to begin your career? You mentioned the podcast. You mentioned you're a cosplayer. So this question covers a whole variety of everything that you accomplish in your life. But what attracted you to begin your career in all these categories?
Oh gosh, yeah, a lot of it did start out for me in all sincerity when I became a cosplayer. Even though as a kid I always loved, acting and performing and whatnot, I didn't think that was a viable career goal for me. At some point, I just kind of assumed, this isn't, a realistic career goal. I should get a normal people job. But while I was in college, funny enough, I took an acting class as an elective. And in that class, I ended up meeting a boy who broke my heart. Um, but no, we're good friends now. But we dated like back then for about 11 months. And at the time that we were dating, he took me to my first anime convention. We went to Nandesukan 2014 and we dressed up as America and Belarus from Hetalia. And I just had such a good time, just getting to be somebody else for a weekend, getting to interact with other people while I was dressed as this character, like with other people who are fans of the series. And um, I just really enjoyed myself. And so I started going to more conventions over the next couple of years. And fast forward to Denver Pop Culture Con 2017. By this point, I'd been cosplaying for about 3 years now. So I go to this panel and it's called Cosplay and Body Confidence. And it was hosted by two cosplayers that I still really look up to and respect to this day, Cemetery Cosplay and uh, they don't cosplay anymore, but Lachlan O'Neill. They were the hosts of the panel. And Lachlan had said at the end of the panel that they were a signed actress, and they were also a signed model. And I'm sitting there thinking, so wait, this is something that in the back of my mind I've always wanted to do, but was told, this isn't realistic for me to make a living off of. And here's somebody who was able to use cosplay as kind of a springboard into all the things that I want to do. Why can't I make it happen for me? So over the next couple of years, I was still going to conventions. At this point, I was also even going to conventions quite a bit for free, which me being a broke grad student was really, really nice. At the time, I was writing for a publication called Nerd Plus magazine, which I think they still publish, but they feature the work of cosplayers who wear over a size 12, because that's a population that often doesn't get their work noticed very much. Um, but then all of a sudden, the COVID-19 pandemic happened, which means that conventions just weren't happening for a while. So during lockdown, I had plenty of time to get really, really honest with myself as to what it was I really wanted to do.
Well, it's funny you
At the,
said, oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. But
nah,
you
no
did
worries.
bring up the next subject I did want to talk to you about, but you can finish.
No worries. But yeah, at the time of the COVID pandemic, I was working for Social Security and not doing very good at my job. A very close friend of mine had also just died at 24. She was murdered at her job. And all of this at once kind of made me think, life is really freaking short. And even though I'm miserable at my job, I mean, I'm making good money doing it, but there's got to be something more to this life. So I took basically with my tax return that year, I signed up to take a bunch of acting classes with Southwest Model and Talent. And I ended up signing with their in-house agency at the end of the year. So for a couple of years, I was on top of my job with Social Security. I was doing whatever I could find through Southwest Model and Talent, whatever work they were able to get me. I got to walk in Denver's Unique Week of Fashion a couple of times. I got to be a background actor for a music video and a couple of short films. I got to be a voice actor for a dramatic podcast. I got to do quite a bit of things, and then in January of 2022, I got invited to compete at IMTA, the International Model and Talent Convention out in Los Angeles. While I was competing out there, I ended up taking first place in the women over 21 age division in screen test. And I, I guess talking in this voice wins every time. People just think it's the funniest thing ever. And then I also won awards, honorable mention awards for improv and voice acting. So that was just like one of the most exciting weeks of my adult life. I had such a good time. And then all of a sudden, when I came back, there was like a long stretch of time for about a year, year and a half, where I just wasn't getting a whole lot of work. At least not through my agent, but I was doing a lot of stuff like freelance and in the cosplay scene. Like I would do stand-up routines at conventions. I would also perform in burlesque shows, like there'd be cosplay burlesque shows. I'm actually going to be doing one coming up here in about a month. The theme is SpongeBob SquarePants, and I'm going to do a routine as Mrs. Puff, so that'll be fun.
No, that sounds like a lot of fun. So
Yeah.
the next subject I actually want to talk to you about is during all this time, how has the pandemic impacted your career? And do
Yeah,
you see life in a different point of view?
absolutely. No, that is an excellent question. So the pandemic, like I said earlier, the fact that the timing of it had also happened when I started working my first like grown-up job out of school, and also had started, also like I said, my friend had died like 6 weeks before lockdown. I was at a place in my life where I was just like, all right, is this really all there is to this life? Can't I have something more? And what's really important to me? Because right now, like, I have a lot of time to sit here and reflect on what it is I really want in life. And yes, when I really got honest with myself, I really did want to be, I really wanted to be a performer. Granted, I still needed to figure out how to support myself, so I was still working for Social Security for the next, like, I was there until last September, definitely, but um yeah, the pandemic really forced me to slow down and take stock of just all of my values.
Now, the next subject I want to talk to you about, it's brought to you by WWE Backlash. If you're a fan of WWE, make sure to get Peacock and watch Peacock. Make sure to get Peacock and watch Peacock. Peacock has a lot of great shows, but if you're a professional wrestling fan, WWE has their pay-per-view live from France. First time ever they've been in France. I mean, okay, second time, maybe third time. But the point is, this Saturday, WWE on Peacock, make sure to watch Backlash and all the hit shows on Peacock. The next subject I want to talk to you about, with everything that you accomplished in your career, and you have a bright future ahead of you. As of right now, what has been some of your greatest achievements? Because you mentioned you're an actress, cosplayer.
Oh yes. If I had to narrow it down to like three of my biggest accomplishments so far, my one of them was getting my first IMDb credit. That was for my role as Becky St. Vrain in the podcast Forward. That was a really intense role. That one was based off of a real life school shooting. My second proudest moment so far in my career would be going out to Los Angeles to do IMTA and taking first place in one of my events. And then probably the last achievement I can think of that would probably be one of the really big ones for me would have to be last December, I actually got signed to Conquest Talent Management out in Los Angeles. So now they've been submitting me, for like really, really big stuff. Like I've gotten auditioned for like all kinds of like commercials for like Sensodyne and Honest Tea and like um Champion Sportswear. I haven't booked anything yet, but I mean, like the fact that I'm seeing these auditions in my inbox for like these big brands just kind of blows my mind sometimes.
Hey, if you can hook a brother up, hook me up.
Oh, yeah.
Now, the next question, the next subject I want to talk to you about is Zoom. During the whole pandemic, a lot of people had to do auditions from Zoom, Skype, and a couple other things, probably FaceTime too. But what is your honest opinion when you use Zoom for auditions or any other of those platforms for that matter? Do you like being there in person, or do you feel that when you use Zoom, you're kind of in your own little comfort zone?
Yeah, I mean, it depends, honestly. It's funny you asked me that question because yesterday afternoon I actually did have an audition via Zoom for a short film. And even though like I can absolutely see the merits of in-person auditions, I mean, it's kind of hard to really get into the character and convey a character when the person you're reading with and the director can only see you from the waist up. Um, but having said all that, it's like like being able to audition from home, especially as an autistic person, it's like I can basically take time out of my day with however many spoons that I have left, and I can use those spoons wisely. And I can create an audition setup that not only puts me in my comfort zone, but I can tailor my setup as I need it to help me better get into character.
I agree. And actually, I haven't found, I use a lot of different green screens. There's one for Aquafina. I love drinking Aquafina. I know you're paying for the name, but I happen to be drinking it while we were talking, but might as well do a little plug for them. But let me ask you this. With everything that you accomplished in your acting career, how, on a scale 1 to 10, how comfortable are you speaking in front of a group of audience? That's number one. And how comfortable are you teaching people? Like, would you feel comfortable teaching me everything that you have gone through?
Oh, let's see. As far as speaking in front of people, I mean, that's something I have had to get very, very comfortable with. I mean, even just this year alone, when I started doing the ghost tours, I mean, sometimes, like, obviously it's a little bit different than talking to an audience because, I mean, with the tours, my group doesn't ever get bigger than 18 people, but the same rules still apply. I still have to be able to hold their attention for the hour and a half long tour. I still have to be good at things like crowd control. And I've learned the hard way. This is true regardless of whether I have a two-person tour or a 12-person tour. And it's the same thing with speaking on stage. And as far as my comfort in being able to teach people things, and I'm assuming you're wanting to know specifically about me and what it is that I've gone through.
Yes.
That's actually very difficult to answer because I feel like every single day, just by being me and existing as I do in this world, in some way, I am teaching people something about me. One thing that I do with how I present myself on social media is, in addition to showing people what it is that I do creative wise, I also tie it back to how it impacts my lived experience. In addition to not just writing a basically a project, really big project with an autistic lead female character, um, the way I wrote my character, a lot of the things that she experiences are very, very much the same things that I experience and how I go about being in the world. So, I guess the short answer to your question is I am comfortable teaching people what it is to be me, but it's not as simple as me getting up on stage and just telling people my story. It's an action that I live every day.
I agree. If for anyone who wants to know why I look like an Incredible Hulk, and I don't have food poisoning. I actually have color whites. So a lot of people are like, well, because I have the shade open behind me. I'm like, oh God, natural white. So I have natural white coming in, but I look dark. So I have green white because it's easier on the eyes. And so, but I didn't want to have white because I'm staring directly at you. So reason I wear the filter glasses, I wish I had $1 for every time I said this, is I blink too much when I speak. So I'm staring directly at you. Not to sound creepy, but I'm looking at you instead of looking straight at the camera. And I'm like, I want to give you your time because you're giving me your time. So I'm looking directly at you. If I'm staring at the camera like this, then it's kind of like, well, is he talking to me or is he talking to the camera? So, plus I blink too much. But no, I am not, the Incredible Hulk, even though whatever, it doesn't make a difference. Anyway, that's a little bit about me. Funny story that you mentioned that you were talking into with a group of people and you give little tours. My dad was a former assistant principal of his school, and he took his class to Washington, D.C. And there was supposed to be someone there that would narrate. When you go to a museum, there's always a person there, like, oh, this is here, this is there. No one showed up. So my dad took a couple of students, my mom was with him, and my brother, took a couple of his class and like, okay, this is what this picture's about, and this is what that picture's about. And no one knew my dad was not, well, I'm going to butcher the word, so I'm not going to be saying what those people are, what they pronounce show things. Do you know the word?
It's too late in the day. Words are hard.
Me too. I try not to hurt myself. But they thought he was someone who worked there, long story short. So this group of Chinese people, I think it was the Chinese or Asian people, sure my dad was a group of people around him talking and looking at the pictures, and they started to follow him. And I said, my dad, well, you should have gotten paid because you're telling the history, and now you have a crowd of people around you. So I thought that was really funny, to talk about, everything.
Oh, there you go.
I don't have a lot of funny stories to tell about myself. I can tell funny stories about other people, but for me, I'm not that interesting of a person. What about you? You have any funny stories you want to tell?
Do I have any funny stories? Oh, let's see. Well, there was the time that I went on an audition for a fashion show. This was for a wedding show. Um, like you had designers who basically had all different styles of like wedding dresses. I actually for that show got to wear like this really cool like gothic piece. But during the audition, it was actually they told us it was going to be at the clubhouse at somebody's apartment complex. This was a low budget show, so they didn't really have a big space for us to use for the auditions. And so we get to the clubhouse, and there's already people there throwing a baby shower, and the people throwing the baby shower were just so confused as to what all of these models were doing in the clubhouse, just having shown up unannounced. And uh eventually we got it figured out. We ended up doing the audition in the apartment of one of the producers. But the entire time that we were standing there in the clubhouse, one of the hosts of the baby shower was like, "I'm sorry you guys are lost and don't have a space to use. Do you want to have some? We have plenty of food left over. We've got plenty of cake." And someone said to the host, "Don't do it. They're models. They're not supposed to eat."
Yeah. No, I
I would
agree.
I wanted to take some cake just to prove them that that was a stupid stereotype, but I don't remember why I didn't take any cake.
It's funny you mentioned a remind me of a funny story. I I'm a big actually, if you heard so far, I'm a big wrestling fan. So I was thinking, everyone who I ever interviewed, and that, first off, now I look like a Smurf, not the Incredible Hulk. Whatever, color whites don't mean anything. Gives it more of effect. Now, had an idea of saying, I interviewed a lot of people from Brooklyn and from Manhattan. Why not, if I'm ever at a convention, get a hotel room and invite people over, professionally, of course. I know a lot of people are like, get your mind out of the gutter. And this is my idea before people try to freaking butcher it. Go to the city, right? Like a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and get a hotel room and invite everyone who I ever interviewed over to the hotel room and say, hey, you're here. We're going to do the interview in person. And also, we're going to take pictures for the book. And a lot of people are like, Keith, how stupid freaking stupid that sounds. Hey, I have a hotel room. You want to come on over? We could do a live. Well, I don't have a studio. I don't have an apartment. So why not take what you have? You're paying for the hotel room. As long as it's professional, but a lot of people like to ruin things for everyone else. What do you think?
Well,
Oh, go ahead.
well, here's how I look at it. So, having been around the convention scene for many, many years, and having met some really, really cool people and having met some really sleazy people,
Oh,
there
thanks.
is there is a way to do what it is you're looking to do without giving people the wrong idea. It's all in how you word it. So personally, I think that like having like a little press room set up might, and advertising it that way would be a good idea. I mean, you could even advertise it as like, hey, this is technically a party room, but it is not a let's get wasted party room. We're going to have basically a little media outlet, like little press junket type of thing party. So, yeah, I guess if you propose it as like a party, people might be more inclined to come.
No,
Don't be surprised if they bring beer.
it's for my network because my network is a little bit of everything. And then we can wrap up the show. My network is about, yes, it's talk show hosts with a disability, but I cater to everyone. I have wrestling fans, I have actors, actresses, models, CEOs. How can I get those younger audience? Well, I like Dumbo. I like Jumble Book, and I'm a fan. Yes, I'm a loser. I'm a fan of those human pyramids. How can I use those to grow my network? So I was like, well, let's do a Dumbo challenge. Let's do the Jumble Book reenactment. So you would have people who are pretending to be these characters, and of course, there's pyramid building in it, but it's an exercise, and it's pretty much an audition of saying, hey, we have cartoons part of it, but it's live action. So my network caters to everyone. You know what I mean? It isn't just, okay, okay, if you're the talk show host with disabilities, is that all you do? No, I have funny skits and then I have funny segments. And plus, I have other people part of my network. So it's kind of like throwing crap against the wall and seeing what sticks. But I do have a couple
I
questions.
mean,
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
everybody has to do that starting out.
That's true. Now, I do have a couple questions for you off the air, but I want you to be brutally honest. When you Did I approach you or did you approach me?
Um, I want to say that I had approached you after I saw your posting I think it was one of the casting call groups on Facebook. That's where I saw it.
I need to come up with a new freaking segment for that because I keep saying this is my old speech, but I'm going to turn it around. This is why I have to come up with a new one. But wrapping up, our goal is to reach 500 and more views. If you're watching, you're obligated to leave a comment, like, share. I would like to interact with you. Our guests would interact with you as well. Make sure to follow us on all social medias. And until we meet again, I catch you later. Thank you and have a good night.